Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're tackling some really interesting source material today, focusing on digital transformation in, well, one of the most complex industries out there, pharmaceuticals.
It really is fascinating stuff because, when you're talking pharma supply chains, the stakes are just incredibly high. It's not just about profit.
Right.
Every single decision, from sourcing ingredients, setting manufacturing schedules, it directly impacts patient health, regulatory compliance. You've got these super long lead times, tricky changeovers, and you absolutely have to keep service levels up.
Exactly. So our mission today is to kind of unpack how the industry is using integrated business planning, or IBP,
Yeah.
to handle all that complexity. We want to look at how IBP helps companies move from, working in separate silos to achieving what the sources are calling integrated excellence. We'll touch on AI, how this impacts cash flow, which is huge, and ultimately patient safety.
Yeah, and if you've heard the term IBP before, let's just quickly define it. It's basically the process of synchronizing everything: demand, supply, financial plans, strategy across the whole company.
Synchronization, that's the key word.
It is. IBP forces everyone to make trade-offs together at the same time. So it's less just a planning tool and more a way to strategically create value.
And it sounds like, from the reading, the biggest hurdle often isn't the tech, it's the culture.
Oh, absolutely. The tech can kind of force the issue, you could say, but getting people to change how they work together, that's the real heavy lifting.
Okay, so let's get into this journey. For pharma, staying ahead means being precise, right? How do they actually anticipate what the market needs, especially when things can change so fast? It seems to start with something called intelligent market sensing.
Right. And this is where IBP really brings in the heavy-duty technology. We're way beyond just looking at last year's sales numbers now. We're talking advanced analytics, machine learning ML, and these pretty sophisticated predictive models that don't just look back. They look outwards. They sense what's happening.
And you see that impact pretty clearly in the results, don't you?
You really do. The big number everyone talks about is forecast accuracy. The source material points to AI-driven demand sensing improving accuracy by, get this, 25 to 50%.
Wow, 25 to 50%, that's huge.
It's a massive jump in precision.
So what does that actually mean day to day, operationally? That kind of accuracy boost.
It means stability. It significantly cuts down on the bullwhip effect in the supply chain.
Ah, yes, the bullwhip.
Exactly. Where a tiny change in patient demand at the pharmacy level
Yeah.
ends up causing these wild swings and panic further up the chain at the warehouse or the factory. Better forecasting just calms all that down.
Okay, so less chaos, fewer stockouts, less money tied up in inventory you might not need. Makes sense.
And it works because the forecasting isn't just historical sales anymore. These IBP systems are smart. They pull in really important external data feeds. Think disease prevalence rates, demographic shifts, healthcare usage trends, even what competitors are doing.
Which must be absolutely vital if you're launching, say, a new specialty drug where there is no sales history yet.
Precisely. For a new launch, you're often guessing based on clinical trials or maybe similar drugs. Integrating this real-time market sensing lets companies project that initial demand much, much more confidently.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The tangible results, the actual savings in the supply chain, and financial gains. The numbers in the sources are pretty staggering.
They are. Let's start with inventory. This is where multi-echelon inventory optimization, or MEIO, comes in. Think of the whole supply chain like a network of pipes and tanks.
Okay.
MEIO figures out the perfect level to keep in each tank, from the raw material supplier to the factory buffer stock, right down to the regional distribution center.
And the objective isn't just cutting inventory.
Right.
It's a balance.
Exactly. The goal is sort of twofold. Cut inventory by 15 to 30%.
Which is a lot.
It is, but at the same time, maintain or even improve service levels to 99% plus. That balance is critical in pharma, especially with temperature-sensitive drugs. You can't afford stockouts, but you also can't afford spoilage from holding too much.
So 99% service and a big inventory cut. That sounds almost too good to be true. What's the catch? Or what's the big challenge in making MEO actually work like that?
Yeah.
Because usually less inventory means more risk.
That's a really short question. It points right back to needing that integration we talked about. MEIO falls apart completely if your demand forecast is shaky or if your production plan isn't reliable.
Oh, okay.
It only works if it gets really accurate, joined up data from the whole IBP process. If the manufacturing plan can't actually stick to the schedule because of, say, an unexpected regulatory issue or a problem with changeovers, which happens all the time in pharma with strict quality rules,
Right.
then the MEIO calculations are useless and boom, you have stockouts.
So the technology itself forces discipline everywhere else.
Exactly. The algorithms are looking at demand swings, lead times, service targets, all to figure out the best place to hold safety stock across the whole network. Then you link that with production planning. IBP optimizes the factory schedules, cutting production costs by up to 20%, getting more out of the assets, even with those long lead times and complex changeovers you mentioned.
And for these big global pharma companies, just moving stuff around must be a massive cost and a compliance headache.
Huge. That's where the global supply network design piece comes in. IBP helps find 10 to 25% savings in logistics costs just by optimizing where plants are, where distribution centers should be, the best transport modes, and crucially, it factors in things like trade regulations and supplier risks in different parts of the world.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly to the money side. How does IBP take all those operational improvements, less inventory, cheaper logistics, and turn them into something the CFO can see and use, like now?
Yeah, it's like an instant translation machine. IBP provides real-time financial reconciliation. Every tweak to the demand forecast, every change in the supply plan immediately gets converted into projected revenue, cost, and profit. Leaders get instant visibility into the financial impact of operational choices.
And the time saving you mentioned earlier is just incredible.
It really is. This financial link cuts the time it takes to close the books each month from maybe 10 days down to just 3 days.
3 days.
Imagine the advantage that gives executives. They can spot problems and adjust course mid-month, not wait until the quarter ends.
And how does this help them prioritize? Because obviously not all drugs are equally profitable.
That's the product portfolio P&L integration. It gives them real-time analysis of profitability by product. So management can actively optimize the mix, balancing maybe high-margin specialty drugs against lower-margin generics. Getting that mix right, the sources say, can boost gross margins by 5 to 15%.
Wow, okay. And lastly on finance, cash flow. Freeing up cash must be vital in an industry that spends so much on R&D.
Absolutely critical. IVP drives 20 to 40% improvements in cash flow performance. It does this by optimizing working capital.
Working capital. That's basically the cash tied up day to day.
Exactly. Cash needed for operations. IBP synchronizes inventory levels when you collect money from customers, accounts receivable, and when you pay suppliers, accounts payable.
Why is that synchronization so important, especially, say, during a big new product launch?
Well, new launches often need huge upfront investment in inventory, right? And you might not get paid by customers for a while. Being able to accurately forecast those cash needs means you can plan investments better, maybe even get better loan terms. You're essentially making your assets, like inventory, work harder and turn into cash faster.
Okay, so the operational gains are huge. The financial visibility is transformed. What about managing risk and making big strategic calls? It sounds like IBP lets companies kind of simulate the future.
That's a good way to put it. It's the power of scenario modeling. These IBP platforms let companies quickly test out the impact of major disruptions. What if a key factory goes offline? What if a regulator delays approval for 6 months? What if a competitor launches something new?
And the key is doing that fast.
That's the differentiator. They can run multiple complex what-if scenarios within hours, not weeks. This helps them figure out the best backup plans. Think about how vital that speed was during the pandemic, when demand for certain drugs just exploded overnight. IBP gives you the tools to assess the impact and shift resources almost instantly.
But as you said right at the start, the tech is only part of the story. The sources keep coming back to this idea that technology alone doesn't get you there. You need to break down the walls inside the organization.
Yeah, and this is often the toughest part of implementing IBP. You absolutely have to smash those traditional silos. You know the old story. Sales wants tons of inventory just in case, finance wants almost none to save costs, and manufacturing wants long, steady production runs to be efficient.
Fundamentally conflicting goals.
Totally.
So how does IBP actually force them to get on the same page? What's the trick?
The trick, or the mechanism really, is using consensus planning workflows. IBP demands one shared number one forecast, one financial plan that everybody agrees to and is measured against. That shared accountability forces people from different departments to actually talk, make decisions together, and own the outcome jointly.
And is there a measurable benefit to achieving that kind of collaboration?
Definitely. Companies that get this right report cutting the time they spend in their monthly IBP planning cycle by up to 50%.
50%.
Yeah. So instead of weeks arguing over whose spreadsheet is right, they spend maybe a few days making strategic decisions based on that single agreed upon plan from the system.
The source material talks about an IBP maturity model.
hmm
Can you quickly explain that? Like, where are most pharma companies now, and what's the ultimate destination level for?
Sure. The maturity model basically maps out the journey from, totally chaotic separate planning up to this ideal state of integrated excellence.
Yeah.
Most pharma companies today are probably somewhere between level 2 and level 3,
Meaning,
meaning they've got formal IBP processes, they've set up governance structures, they've put the basic technology in place, they're doing IBP.
but maybe not perfectly integrated yet.
Right. Level 4, that top tier, is where everything is seamlessly connected across all functions. Advanced analytics are driving pretty much every decision, and you see consistently superior results, better forecasts, faster inventory turns, stronger financials. But getting to level 4, it's less about buying more software. It's really about organizational transformation.
Yeah, it's that cultural change again, getting people to think about the whole company's performance, not just their own department's targets.
Exactly that. It needs constant buy-in from leadership to push those behavioral changes. You need finance folks who understand manufacturing limits and supply chain folks who get the market dynamics. It becomes an enterprise-wide way of managing performance and shifting that culture. That's the hardest part.
Okay, so this has been quite the deep dive into some really impressive ROI figures. Just to quickly recap the big numbers we hit on. Improvements of 5 to 20% in service levels, inventory cuts of 10 to 20%, and working capital boosts between 15 and 40%.
Huge numbers. And remember, in pharma, it's always more than just the money, right? Better product availability, better financial health. It ultimately means patients getting the critical medicines they need reliably anywhere in the world. IBP helps turn that from just a supply chain risk into really an ethical commitment.
So we've seen IBP uses sophisticated tech AI, modeling for big gains in speed and accuracy. And the data shows companies are using tech to get to that level 3 maturity. But it makes you wonder, if the AI and the platforms are handling the really complex number crunching and optimization now, does getting to that true integrated excellence, level 4, boil down almost entirely to the hardest thing to change, that people and culture piece? That's something to think about as these transformations roll out. Maybe the future of planning isn't just algorithms, but really rests on leadership and changing how people work together.